97.3.
Discover more with the all-new LBC podcast app from London's biggest conversation. LBC 97.3. LBC 97.3. This is Ask Boris. Mayor of London Boris Johnson takes your calls with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. Ask Boris on London's biggest conversation. LBC 97.3.
Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock on Tuesday, the 3rd of December. That means it's time for Ask Boris with me, Boris Johnson, here on LBC 97.3. I'm taking your questions for the next 45 minutes. So if you want to get involved, here's how you do it. Call me on 0845 6060 973. Text me on 84850. And don't forget, you can also watch Ask Boris live on our website, lbc.co.uk. So let's go to the first caller. We've got John in Stansted Abbots. John.
Hiya, Boris.
Good morning.
Well, I think first I'd just like to say how it actually is, because I know sometimes people don't always get answers to their questions. And how it is, you know, the whole thing with trading with other countries is a complete farce. We all know that now. You know, you might say different, and the newspapers might say different, but the truth of the matter is, if you have a manufacturing population, we manufacture for ourselves, we grow for ourselves, we don't need anybody else. It's quite nice to trade with others, we can swap, certainly. But when it's one-sided, and the reason why we're buying the cheap goods, because we haven't got the money. We haven't, you know, the person on the ground. I'm not talking about...
Well, what you're really calling for, John, is a restoration of British manufacturing capability, aren't you? Is that what you're saying? And an ability to supply our own markets. I mean, I think that it's a very interesting thought. I would point out that the UK has been... it hasn't been self-sufficient in food, for instance, since about the 1830s or 40s. And we have always been a trading nation. I think it'd be a mistake to revert to a kind of autarky with a K, you know, believing that you can supply your own needs. That was one of the sort of errors that the fascists got into in the 1930s. An open trading economy is one also that's likely to be better integrated with the rest of the world and to be more at peace with the rest of the world, I would say.
Well, do you know what peace actually means?
This is all getting a little esoteric now. John, it's Nick here. I mean, effectively, you don't see the value in trade delegations because you're going off on one of your Etonian rambles that you can.
Hang on, what do you mean?
Well, to be candid, you're talking cobblers. Nobody cares. I'm trying to bring it down to things that... Do you think that the trade delegations, that since the Mayor leads, the Chancellor leads, and the Prime Minister's current... You don't see the value, John, is that correct?
You're quite right, Nick. He's talking about the trade delegations.
Yes, that's all right. Is there value to these trade delegations?
Yes.
How much money did you make? Did you bring back from China?
Well, if you look at the investment that's coming to London that we discussed and helped to facilitate in China, it's massive.
But half of that was done before you went, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's very, very important to make the personal contacts, and these things can slip through your fingers. Don't forget that a lot of this stuff is you know, we've signed agreements, we're almost there, but you've got to dot the I's and cross the T's. We've got £6 billion coming into the docks, into the Royal Albert docks. No one imagined that was going to happen 5-10 years ago. Incredible scheme. A scheme to regenerate Crystal Palace. No one in their right minds believed that could be about £1 billion there. These are very, very considerable investments. And from John's point of view, because this is what matters. What matters to people is this stuff actually any good for me? Is it any good for London?
Is it creating jobs?
And does it create jobs? Yes. And the answer is yes, it does.
All right.
Because if you look at what's going to happen in Newham, for instance, that area where I'm talking about the ABP investment, if that goes right over the next 10, 20 years, that will produce 20,000 jobs in Newham, many of which will go to local people, many of which will go to people who are not previously in work. And that will be as many jobs as there were when the Royal Albert docks were at their
How many people did you take to China with you?
In their pomp in the Victorian
How many people
epoch.
did you take to China with you?
an elite band,
20, 30.
I think it was fewer than that, to be honest. 15? We had a very top level business delegation.
Why is it necessary the Prime Minister to take 131 people with him?
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, don't forget, these business characters will be paying their own way, Nick. They're not being flown out on a taxpayer-funded junket or jolly. These are people who see the advantage of going with the Prime Minister, who's going to knock down, open the doors for them, get them in to meet people in China who can really help them with their exports, with growing their businesses, with investment. And I think it makes a huge amount of sense for the country. Right. And don't forget, here we are, criticising the Prime Minister for taking. I don't criticise him. I applaud what he's doing. I completely applaud it. But Angela Merkel took her entire cabinet to China, and we ask ourselves sometimes, why Germany got off to a roaring start in dealing with China.
Let's go to other calls if we can.
Yes, please. Let's have Barry in Chingford. Barry.
Oh, good morning, Boris. Good morning. This is to do with the underground ticket offices.
Yes, sir.
As far as I know, they've only ever sold tickets. My idea would be to convert them, and this might sound crazy, into Costa coffee kiosks.
Oh, Barry, well, it's incredible.
Because
Go on.
Yeah, this would obviously bring in extra revenue stream and may help towards or completely cover the ticket officer's salary.
Well, it's a very interesting idea, Barry. And actually, of course, TfL are looking at it. We are definitely looking at it. We want to make maximum use of the spaces in our ticket halls. There's a huge potential for retail there. But I want to stress to all listeners that this is not being driven by some desire to turn everything into Costa Coffees. This is just to have the best possible service. And we think it will be much better to get people out from behind plate glass where they currently are, where they're not selling very many tickets, selling fewer and fewer tickets.
What about the partially sighted?
And get them into onto the concourses and onto the platforms where the partially sighted and others who need special help can be dealt with.
But I understand that the only way these folk can buy tickets, because there's no braille facility on these machines, is what I'm told, is by doing it at the booking office.
Well, I'm not certain that is the case, by the way. And if there are people who need assistance in buying tickets, it's very, very important. On the big stations, we will continue to have ticket offices, and no place will be unstaffed. No station will be unstaffed.
So what are we going to put in the booths then? So we're going to have Costa Coffee, dry cleaners, Amazon drop-offs, photo processing.
You could
what else?
Consider
pregnancy testing. What else could we do?
Photo processing. It's an interesting
teeth whitening.
You can do all sorts of things, Nick. All sorts of things.
But what else could there be?
And I'm not. This is a matter obviously for TfL's commercial arm to come up with solutions, and we're working on it now. And one of the interesting things actually is that the London Assembly is very keen to maximise revenue from this, and actually to rename stations in honour of big corporations in the hope that they will pay very large sums of money. The difficulty we have with that is that just changing the names on the tube maps is very expensive itself. We doubt we'd raise enough revenue.
What do you mean changing the names on the tube maps?
Well, Marble Arch used to be called Selfridges. I bet you didn't know that.
I did not know.
There you go. But in order to do that, if you wanted to call Tottenham Court Road Samsung or something, which I think many Londoners would object to anyway, it would cost. You'd have to get a pretty stonking sum from Samsung
have to pay for it, yes.
From Samsung to justify the changes.
What a great idea!
Oh, come on, mate.
I think it's a sensational idea.
Well, if you want to,
what's the matter with it?
Well, I'm not against
it.
Listen, I'm not against it in principle, Nick. I've said this before. If Samsung want to change Tottenham Court Road to Samsung, they can.
How much?
It's top dollar. Well, it's be expensive.
£500,000.
Not for me to negotiate on
£500,000.
£500,000 wouldn't be that. It would cost at least £4 million just to change the maps.
What? £4 million to change?
You've got to change the maps. You've got to change
little stickers that go on there.
No, mate. You've got to change the maps. You've got to change all the leaflets. You've got to.
All right. So £6 million, and we'll call it Samsung City.
Well, if you're representing Samsung here and now, Nick, then we should enter into negotiations. But I don't think
Samsung City.
I don't think you are authorised.
In perpetuity.
I don't think you are authorised to negotiate. Let's go to Ali in Burnham.
Morning, Boris.
Good morning.
Morning. Your comments about the IQ levels of different strata in society. The strike is disingenuous because, of course, you went to Eton.
Yeah,
and the likes of you decide.
Go on.
Please, one moment. You and your chums decide how much money not to spend on the school. And people like me went to state comprehensive. We did well out of it, thankfully. But over the last 20-odd years, spending on education is just indicative of the attitude of those that sit in their ivory towers looking down on the rest of the peasantry.
Well, can I correct you just on one thing, Ali?
Let's get the mayor in, Ali.
Can I just quickly correct you on one thing? What I was saying, actually, is there is too much inequality. And my speech was actually a warning, as correctly reported by many newspapers, actually a warning against letting this thing go unchecked. Because if you look at what's happened in the last 20, 30 years, there's been a widening in income between the rich and the poor. There's no question about that. And what hacks me off, Ali, is I think exactly the thing that worries you is that people with ability have found it very difficult to progress in the last 20 years, and we've got to do something about that. And I also said, I mean, the key thing I said was that inequality was only tolerable in our society if you, number one, you looked after those who are finding it tough to compete, and number two, where people do have talent and ability, you let them get on. And so I went on to explain what you needed to do, Ali. And you're right to talk about education, because that in my view is the key thing.
Well, Ali, back in a second.
Too many of our schools have not really been helping kids to achieve their potential.
This is what Nick Clegg said to me last week on Call Clegg.
I have to say, I think these comments reveal a fairly unpleasant, careless elitism.
I wouldn't have put it like that. No,
I think you probably would.
I don't agree with everything he said.
I think it was more back to the 80s than back to the 50s. That idea, greed is good, and the poor are poor because they're stupid.
So we've had Nick Clegg, George Osborne, Ed Balls, and now David Cameron, as I'm sure overnight, has said Boris talks for Boris.
Well, people are entitled. People are entitled to willfully to misconstrue what I said if they so choose.
So I
noticed that many newspapers, many commentators did not. I think the real issue is that we need to do more to help people, both who are finding it tough and people who, 20 or 30 years ago we had much more fluidity in, perhaps more 30 years ago than 20 years ago.
Ever taken an IQ test?
And this is not about me, Nick.
I have an IQ question for you. Would you ready to take it? It's from an official IQ test.
This is not about me.
A man builds a house with 4 sides of rectangular construction, each side having a southern exposure. A big bear comes along. What colour is the bear?
The bear is probably brown. I haven't got a clue what the colour of the bear is, nor is it relevant to this discussion.
Why? Because the bear is on the South Pole. Try another one.
No, listen, mate.
Take 2 apples from 3 apples. What do you have? Take 2 apples from 3 apples. What do you have?
You've got loads of apples, mate. You've got 1 apple left.
You've got 1 apple.
Listen.
You say you've got 1 apple.
Listen. What we're talking about.
You haven't. You've got 2 apples. You're now batting 0 for 2. Let's just do one more. I went to bed at 8 o'clock last night.
I think we're rather proving the point that I made.
You were the one who brought IQ into the conversation. I went to bed at 8 o'clock in the evening, and I wound up my clock to set the alarm to sound at 9 o'clock in the morning. How many hours sleep would I get before being woken by the alarm? I went to bed at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Well, mate,
I wound up my clock and set it to 9 o'clock in the morning. How many hours sleep did I get?
Well, I slept like a log.
I'm delighted.
I was looking forward to seeing you on LBC 97.3. We're waiting for some more sensible questions.
You're declining, are you?
What I'm telling you is that this isn't about.
It's an hour.
What I'm telling you is
this is not any of the IQ questions.
This is not about.
So who are you to lecture about IQ, Mr. Bear?
Exactly. Listen, no one said that IQ is the only measure of ability, but what I have been saying repeatedly is I think that our system is letting down people who do have ability and who could do much better. And we're now going to Mark in Marble Arch.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Mark.
Hello. This is just a follow-up to an email I sent you regarding cycle safety.
Yes.
Now, as regards to cycle safety, would it be any beneficial to have a convex mirror attached to the traffic light pole so drivers of high vehicles can look at this mirror and see down the near side where any cyclists are and take care when turning left like I do when I drive my coach?
Mark, we do have such lens mirrors, and we are fitting them where we can, and that's one of the reasons why we're investing about £1 billion in cycle safety measures and in traffic improvement measures across the city. I think that I know Nick wants to come in and ask more questions about this, but I think it is very, very important for people to bear in mind that we've got a a situation now where obviously there's a lot of anxiety about cycling, which I think is in many ways overdone. And I just want to repeat the key statistic, which is that in the last 5 years, actually, we've seen fewer deaths than in the previous 5 years. And actually, that is in spite of a huge increase in cycling. But, Mark, we are putting a lot of stuff to make it ever safer. And we're going to go now to Harvey and Stepney Green.
Just before we move on, because cycling is such a live issue, are you now wearing your cycle helmet all the time?
Not all the time. I do generally wear it, but not all the time.
Why would you choose not to wear it?
Because sometimes it's a bit nippy, and I don't... as I've said repeatedly on this show, I don't always wear it. And it would be paradoxical, wouldn't it, for me to continue to sit here and say, as I do, that cycling is actually safe and getting safer, and then simply to change my habits.
You set a lead that others can follow. You're the mayor.
Well, as I've said, I think it's, in principle, there's no reason why people shouldn't wear cycle helmets. I do generally wear a cycle helmet, but I don't regard it as mandatory to get on a bicycle. If you do make it mandatory to wear a cycle helmet to get on a bicycle, what you will do, and we've seen plenty of evidence of this from around the world, is you will simply discourage people from cycling.
Well, that's happening anyway, isn't it? Are you aware of the research yesterday? 1 in 5 cyclists in London say they've stopped cycling to work. This came out yesterday, following the recent deaths on the capital roads. Just to remind everybody, over a hideous period last month, I think of around 13 days, 6 cyclists were fatally injured. So fewer people are cycling anyway. You keep lauding it, but people are frightened, aren't they?
Well, I saw the poll. I also saw some people who disputed. I saw Andrew Gilligan, I thought, rather elegantly disputed the validity of that.
Well, he described the poll size as tiny, but
what we're
you don't think cycling's declined at all, then?
Is continuing to invest in cycling, and I believe it's the right way for the city to go. And I'd be very disappointed if people were put off from cycling by unjustified apprehension. Of course, it's right to be cautious.
People are being killed. It's hardly surprising you might get put off a bit. I know you're a passionate cyclist, and that is to be lauded, but it's hardly surprising that someone who is not as wholly committed as you are might think twice before putting on his cycle clips.
Well, I appreciate that, and one cycling death is one too many, and we are doing our level best to make the roads safer. But I think it's and yes, we suddenly had a spate of very,
you don't
very
think cycling has gone down? You dispute this poll?
No, I don't know. It may well be that people have taken fright because of the adverse the media coverage that there has been.
The media coverage.
That is possible.
I see. So it's not the 5 deaths.
Well, I just if people forgive me, the number of deaths per year is not out of line with what we've seen over
6 deaths
the previous
in 13 days.
It's not out of line with what we've seen.
Is it? So it's not these poor souls who are getting killed under these lorries. It's the media's fault, is it? These 6 people. I've never heard such. Someone who's trained as a journalist, that is truly staggering.
Come on,
what are we meant to do? Look the other way?
No, I absolutely not. But it is. There is no question that there's been a very big storm about cycle safety.
Because people are being killed as they cycle to and from work. You're hardly surprised. You are a journalist.
Yes, Nick. But if you look at if you look at the statistics, the risk of a fatality is actually less than it was 5 years ago, and I think it's very, very important to keep making that point. Otherwise, people will continue to take the kind of line that you've just taken. And I know you're very hostile to cycling.
No, that's not fair.
I'm
hostile to unsafe cycling.
Well, I think in that case,
I think you're cramming too much on the roads. But that's a point we could go on. Lastly, do you listen to your headphones or whatever it might be? Can you wear headphones if you're cycling?
Well, was it on your show? Or
no, it was another show.
Another show.
You've been seeing other men again, I think.
I think it was another woman.
Oh, was it? We don't need to talk about that, do we, Mr.
It was your rival, Vanessa.
There are no rivals. Can we wear headphones?
Vanessa, who's listen. It's a free country. It's a free country, and I'm naturally libertarian in these things. But I happen to think that it's unwise because my view is you do need to keep your senses as sharp as you possibly can when you're cycling, and to be able to hear is very, very important.
Let's go to other calls.
Hello, can we go to Harvey and Stepney Green, please?
Hello. Good morning, Boris.
Good morning, Harvey.
Hammersmith and City and Metropolitan Line tube trains, they've taken the ends off each carriage. You can get in at the front of the train and you can see straight back, right through to the back of the train. There's no divisions anymore. Now, we've had a bomb go off and it's blown up the carriage. If if a bomber sets a bomb off in the centre of a train like that 7-carriage train, the blast will go all the way down both ends and kill everyone or injure everyone. Why have they done this?
This is Harvey. This is on the Hammersmith and City line.
Yeah, the new Hammersmith and City, the brand new ones.
So
and
there's no doors at all. There's just like one long snake.
That's right. You can look down from one end and see. You can walk from one end to the other without.
I imagine, presumably, it facilitates more passengers, doesn't it? I would think that's the argument for.
You might get 2 more passengers. Okay. There's not a great difference between the 2 carriages on the old-fashioned trains.
All right.
But I mean, it's unbelievable. We've had a bomb go off. Why do this?
Let me, Harvey. The best thing I can do is undertake to get back to you. I don't know the answer to your question. I'm afraid I'll find out what we're doing on the Hammersmith City line and whether we can restore the doors that you want. And thanks for pointing it out.
Harvey,
can we go to Ali in Chelsea?
I was just going to say while we're on fares, while we're on tubes, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Perhaps we could have a word on the fares. It would appear some good news for.
Well, yes.
London's...
I mean, I'm not going to. I don't want to over egg this, Nick. But we've I pledged to bear down on fares if I could, and we have, and I'm very pleased that we've been able to keep our fares at RPI. Effectively, that means on the services that TfL is running, we're keeping them down to about 1.8%, and that obviously the daily Oyster pay-as-you-go cap will continue to be frozen for the second year running.
How have you managed it, Mr. Mayor?
Well, don't forget that this is going hand in hand with a programme of cost-cutting and of modernisation that is vital for our network. And what we have not done, I want to stress that we have not in any way prejudiced our ability to invest in the network. I mean, all the things that we pledged to do, all the things that I said I was going to do on the network have continued to be funded. Crossrail is going ahead. The Northern Line extension is going ahead.
Some of those travel cards have gone up there, haven't they, Mr. Mayor? Zone 1 to 3 goes up to £37. Zones 1 through 6, 1 to 6 goes up to £58. I mean, they're fairly healthy increases, aren't they?
Yes, don't forget that the difficulty we have with the travel cards is that those fares are partly controlled by Network Rail, by the railway companies, and I think we argued for a long time that it'd be a good thing to have an abatement there. We weren't successful, but so what we've done to reduce the rise for Londoners is to reduce our share as much as we possibly can.
Do you think it offers good value for money then, the London Underground?
Look, I'm not going to pretend that this is a massive swinging fare cut. It's not that, and everybody can see that. But it's what we're doing is doing our level best to keep fares as low as we possibly can, and to modernise the network, to modernise the system. Earlier caller asked what we're doing with ticket offices. There are obviously ways of raising revenue and getting more people out there to help passengers without any compulsory redundancies. I want to stress that, without any compulsory redundancies.
We spoke to Bob Crow earlier in the show. He asked us to put this to you.
Well, I'd like to have a meeting with the Mayor of London. He's been in office now for nearly 8 years. He meets all commerce. But he refuses to meet the RMT. We're the biggest union on the Underground, and we would like to have an opportunity to put our side of the story, what's taking place. And the message I'd like to send to the Mayor is that all the spin that he's put on regarding all-night working, which, by the way, we're a big supporter of all-night working in the Tube. But I want to know, first of all, what the police think about it. Because I was told that the police are supposed to be looking after us when we're in our beds at night. How are they going to be overstretched a bit, I think, with no more resources, and they'll be expected to run around 260 tube stations with people fueled up with even more booze and drugs to them than what they've got now.
Are you telling me you've never met with the Mayor?
I met him once briefly on radio, and I said to him at that meeting, it'd be nice just to have a meeting a couple of times a year for half an hour. I respect his position, that he's the elected Mayor, and I do respect his position. That's what the people of London have elected him. But he should respect our position, that we represent workers on the Underground.
And so he's not met with you in a professional capacity?
No.
He's never met with you?
No.
Why is that, Mr. Mayor?
You're talking to me now?
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to take that aggressive tone. Yeah, I am talking to you now.
Okay. Well, as far as I know, the RMT are currently balloting for
it starts today.
For a strike.
Yep.
And if I have no intention of entering into any kind of negotiation.
They say 1,000 jobs could go, safety will be affected, the network will be a hollowed out shell.
Well, that's complete nonsense. And he's also I think Bob Crow's also
just said overnight working. They just want to meet with you.
They support overnight working, and they support modernisation of the Tube. Well, that is what we're trying to do. And I stress that the name of the game is the reason. I mean, Bob always says this. Then the reason that it wouldn't be wise for me to meet him in these sorts of circumstances is, it's perfectly obvious. It's because we have negotiators, we have people running our tube network for us, and it would be completely crazy to undermine them or to try to second guess them and to supplant myself for their negotiation. Now,
over 8 years, you've met him once in a radio studio. That's kind of strange, isn't it?
Why? I mean, it's perfectly reasonable. And
sadly, he has a massive hand in the fate of Londoners when it comes to deciding to switch off the tube network.
Well,
and if I were in your shoes, like him or lump him, I'm going to think, well, I better get alongside this bloke.
Well, I think you'll find that the objective of the RMT is to recruit more members to the RMT, and they, in my view, that they there's a great deal on the table. I urge Bob and Crow and his colleagues to take it, and I stress this. What we are doing is actually expanding the tube network. We're investing massively, as I said just now. We're investing massively in the in expanding in running 24-hour trains, for instance, which will mean that there are more jobs, more opportunities for hard-working people, and we want to support that, and I hope that Bob Crow will do as well. Ali in Chelsea.
Good morning, Boris and
morning.
Nick.
Hello, Ali.
Thanks for having me on the show today. I wanted to ask a question regarding the huge influx in migrants, especially the Roma community, which we're expecting in January.
Yeah.
I don't think we should worry too much about the arrival of any immigrants from any country. I think we should embrace it and give them a chance, especially if they have something to offer to the country like skills or talents. But my question is, Boris, how are you going to make sure that the Roma community will be given a chance to get work instead of allowing them to enter the country and be forced to beg, steal or work in gangs like many immigrants and locals do in London already?
Well, I think it's up to people coming to this country to seek the jobs that are available and not to get drawn into criminal activity. And I think I mean, Ali, if I may say so, you're putting it. I'm as tender-hearted as anybody, but you're putting it in a very extreme way. I think if people come here and with the intention of finding work and they can't find work, then obviously they should go back and they should. But there are plenty of jobs for hard-working people, and I do think that it is ridiculous that we are currently in a situation in which it is very difficult to stop as huge numbers of people effectively coming and not working. And
plenty of jobs, you say. Where are those plenty of jobs for hard-working people, Mr. Mayor?
Well, London is a prodigious generator of new employment, and
it's mostly the service sector, isn't it? Not that there's anything wrong, God bless them in the service, but that's principally what you're talking about.
Depends what you mean, Nick. If you look at the construction sector, there's obviously there's the shortage of bricklayers at the moment. If you talk to London businesses, there's a shortage of people involved in those trades. There's a big premium on some of these jobs. Now, what I'm saying to Ali about the Roma community, and I hear what Ali says about welcoming talented people, and to a great extent I agree with that. Where I draw the line, though, is allowing people to come here without any intention of getting work, getting sucked into criminal, already being part of criminal activity. And what you've got, I'm afraid of, I would like to have longer derogations. I would like to have a system, as I said in my speech the other night, I would like to have longer derogations for people to, make sure that people are not able to come here and virtually immediately claim benefits. And there's no reason at all why we shouldn't have more flexibility.
How long should they wait?
Well,
it's been put to 3 months now, isn't it?
I think it should. I think you should have more flexibility.
What does that mean? 6, 9,
something like that.
12.
Yeah,
12.
I think you could go for 6 months, 12 months. I don't
so
see why
a year.
Not. I don't see why not. I mean, you've got. Don't forget, there are very considerable pressures on the system. You've got big competition for jobs. You've got many young Londoners who feel.
I think a lot of people would agree.
They're not getting it. They're not getting a fair suck of the sauce bottle. And why not? Why not? This is something where and this is what we should get, by the way, in our renegotiation with the EU. Why not just get more freedom to vary the conditions in which you open your own borders.
The Prime Minister was already sort of limbering up for a battle with the EU, isn't he?
I think that's the right battle to have.
How much confidence do you think he'll come out as the victor?
I think. Well, I'm very confident that he will. I tell you why. Because the minute he raised it, you saw governments in other countries joining the bandwagon and coming in support.
We pause briefly, but on this bombshell from Darren, who's emailed, "It's my curse to know more about the history of the London Underground than is safe for an average human. And Boris is wrong. Marble Arch Station was never called Selfridges. Indeed, the station was opened by the Central London Railway Company in 1900, some years before Mr. Selfridge opened the store on Oxford Street. It doesn't inspire confidence on me if Boris spouts off without having the facts to back up his statements.
Well,
who's right? Who's wrong? You will find out after the news.
Well, I was assured of this fact.
Well, we're going to find out.
By the Commissioner for Transport.
Stay tuned. The answer coming up on LBC 97.3, 9:31.
If you can't trust TfL, who can you trust? That's what I want to know. You can't trust TfL.
London Mayor Boris Johnson's been telling LBC 97.3 he's doing his best to keep tube and bus fares low. That's despite announcing this morning that fares will go up by an average 3.1% next month. Weekly and monthly travel cards will rise by 1% above inflation.
I'm not going to pretend that this is a massive swinging fare cut. It's not that, and everybody can see that. But it's what we're doing is doing our level best to keep fares as low as we possibly can. And to modernise the network, to modernise the system.
Police are investigating after a teenage boy was stabbed to death in Palmer's Green this morning. They were called to Bowes Road at around 1 a.m. No one has been arrested. Royal Bank of Scotland is offering compensation to customers left out of pocket by a technical problem last night. People who bank with RBS and NatWest couldn't get any money out or pay by card on the busiest online shopping day of the year. At 9:15, the FTSE was down 12 at 65.83, and London's weather staying dry but cloudy. The odd bright spell around later. Highs of 6 degrees, which is the temperature right now at the London Eye. LBC 97.3, it's 9:33.
I'm Matty McCall, the LBC 97.3 Travel Centre. Still the problems in Norbury, the A23 London Road, that's closed between Norbury Avenue and Norbury Crescent after an accident. Congestion still back to Thornton Heath Pond. Greenwich and delays on Woolwich Road, the A206 near Vanbrugh Hill after an accident earlier on. And at the Oval in Kennington, the congestion continues because the traffic lights aren't facing quite the way they should. North Circular in Palmer's Green, lane closed westbound at the Clockhouse interchange for investigations, and that means delays back to the Crooked Billet. M4 elevator section into town, the inside lane blocked between 2 and 1 after an accident involving two lorries in the car. And the M25 clockwise 16 to 17, the M40 Maple Cross, and delays after a vehicle caught fire earlier on. Keep another moving. Next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
So we come back for another 10 minutes of questions with the Mayor. I have to tell you, we don't have the definitive answer on whether that station, that tube station...
Come on.
Well, I know.
TfL. Come on, TfL.
Well, let's have LBC v TfL and see who LBC, was Marble Arch ever called Selfridges. But one thing I can tell, and this is my question...
Go on.
This is from your Mayor Watch, or the Mayor Watch, not yours, the Mayor Watch blog yesterday. It's some journey numbers, not for the tube, Mr. Mayor, and not to do with cycling. Do you know where we're going?
This is about the most beautiful, the most fantastic, the most brilliant and innovative new river crossing in the last 10 years.
Journey numbers for the Mayor's flagship Thames cable car fell to 18,572 last week.
18,572 happy people.
One of the lowest levels since the scheme opened in June.
18,572 happy people who are travelling.
Mr. Mayor, I know this is Ask Boris, but may I just
finish? Well, this is Ask Boris. And I want to just finish this point. It's 18,572 people who are travelling on the only piece of transport infrastructure about which we've been talking solidly all morning that is going to cover both its capital and its revenue costs in the next 6 years, and that has attracted £36 million in sponsorship from the Emirates company. It's the Emirates airline. People love it. People love it when they use it.
And here we go. Last week's figures mean average daily use 2,653, only slightly higher than the 2,500 TfL originally boasted it would carry per hour.
No, that's its capacity.
In a day.
Oh, come on.
In a day, you're doing
one day you will eat so much humble pie about this subject that you will pop. No, when's it going to happen? Already actually.
To pop.
No, I don't want to encourage you to eat any more pie. You strictly have to. But if you look at the effect it's had on the neighbourhood, talk to Robin Wells in Newham, Sir Robin. And look at, as I mentioned earlier, I was going on about
4 regular commuters.
Do
you know we found 3 of them? Honestly, we went down and our reporters spent all day and spoke to 3 of the 4. They're very grateful, but even they can't work it out.
It's brilliant. And
will you accept at 2,653
No, one day I will accept your surrender.
Maybe we should do the show from the cable car.
Well, why not? It'd be great, actually. It's absolutely.
May as well get some use out of it. No one else is using the damn thing.
It's not true. I go past it very regularly, and I see loads of people on it, and it's a great attraction for London. And also, it has helped to stimulate investment in that part of the docks, which considering the huge amount of sponsorship we got for it, considering that it's going to cover its costs, is not a bad deal. You've got 6 billion quid's worth coming in from the Chinese to the Royal Albert Docks. You've got a huge amount of interest in a part of London that's completely deserted. If you don't, the whole point is, Nick, if you don't take some brave decisions, if you don't come up with some original ideas for transportation, then you won't get regeneration going across the city. And I go now to Mohammed in Beckton.
Hello, Boris. First-time caller on your show.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Mohammed.
Just need to ask about the Riverine Centre, London, that mega mosque in Newham.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Because 87% of the borough's people wrote and they want that mosque.
Right.
What did the GLA think about that, or what's your view about that mosque?
Well, I think this is one of those, Mohammed, I think this is one of those planning things that I think I really have to keep a bit quiet on, because I imagine the local borough will have some views on this, and I think if it does come before me, I think I might prejudice any decision I might make if I babble on about it too much now.
So has it been referred? Mohammed, what do you understand the situation to be briefly, sir?
What do I understand about that?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good. I think it's a good area.
You do, but is it going to be a referral? Because we can't. The mayor would prejudice himself. Do you know if it is going to be referred, Mohammed? You know what I think we'll do? Let's take a note of your number. Let's see what happens, and that the next ask Boris.
Mohammed, if I may respectfully say, I think
we can't risk doing that.
You've got to go for the planning authorities in Newham. Lorenzo in Stevenage.
Hello, Boris.
How are you?
Let me congratulate you on becoming Prime Minister. Well, you heard it first from me.
Well, I think that is vanishingly unlikely. But
why vanishingly, Mr. Mayor? Why vanishingly? Why vanishingly?
Because I think, as I never tire of saying, I've got about as much chance of being Prime Minister
as being, here we go. Yeah, the frisbee and whatever. Lorenzo, back to you.
Being locked in a disused fridge,
right?
Or failing to get to work on time because of delays on the Jubilee line.
Right. Okay. Right. Back to you, Lorenzo.
Right. I'd like to ask questions about the social workers. Who's controlling the social workers?
Yeah.
We've had that case last week where the MP in Essex had some very damning things to say about them. You know, the Italian girl that you were talking about the other day, forced cesarean, and the baby taken away from her.
Right. You really are bringing him out of his remit, but carry on. I'm sure he's got a view. He's a view on everything.
Social workers work under the councils, and you know, I'm talking about a London council. My father's not very well. He's mentally unstable. The police have been to the house. They said he's unstable.
Right.
We felt we were getting on. I called social workers to see if they could do anything. They didn't really seem to do much. He called them.
Yeah.
He called them. He had me evicted from the house. I ended up sleeping in the street.
Dear. Well, listen, Lorenzo, just quickly. I mean, you're out of my area anyway in Stevenage, but I am concerned, particularly about the way mental health is being handled in London. It's an area of great concern for healthcare professionals and also for the police, as you point out, because the police are very often bearing the brunt of this. And I do think we need to focus on mental health care, and social workers are unsung heroes. Many of them do an amazing job, but obviously there are people who are letting who find things get on top of them.
We've got the answer that you and I have been waiting for, by the way.
Oh God!
Yes, it was Bond Street that was to be called Selfridges. Bond Street Station.
Well, okay.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen?
No, it didn't happen.
Well, why didn't it happen?
Well, I think we're going back to even before I was around. So,
well, you see, okay. Well,
I have to ask Vince Cable. He was probably around. He'd know.
Let's get Vince on.
He probably knows.
He probably blocked it. It was Liberal. I bet it was Vince Cable who
sounds
stopped
about
it being
right.
Called. I bet it was.
On the subject of the underground,
because he said it was commercialisation.
On the subject of public transport, here's a nice one for you. Jenny in Westminster, please tell Boris we love those new buses, the Route 11. They're much smoother ride. It's so nice to be able to hop on and hop off like we used to. It's a great success. Thank you, Boris.
Well, thank you. Fantastic.
Jenny in Westminster.
You've tried to beat me up about those buses many times.
But we're celebrating the great public transport we have in this city. If you're telling us the London Underground is good value. If you were to go to your nearby,
it is good. It is a fantastic system.
And buy a one-way ticket, Angel, to London Bridge, which of course would be close to your place of work. How much would it cost you to travel one way, Angel, to London Bridge?
On an Oyster card?
No, just a one-off trip. You've forgotten your Oyster. Angel to London Bridge. How much is that going to cost you?
I've got the figures here. I've got them.
Okay,
if you get a,
I don't know what you're finding difficult about this. You're quite a well-educated man. You present yourself at Angel Station. You want to go to London Bridge. You haven't got your Oyster. What else do you need to know? The ticket seller's name?
Yeah. Wait a minute. If you got your Oyster card, I think it's gone up to £2.
Pardon? £2?
£2.10 is it? Oh God, figures. I use the Oyster card because it's the cheapest way of getting around.
It's in your suit that the wife has sent to the cleaners.
I always use.
How much is the fare?
Always use your Oyster card. I can give you. Do you want me to recite? Where's? Someone give me. Here we go. Here's the whole list. Here we go. Okay.
Even I knew this.
Here we go.
And I don't use the things.
If you want a one-way ticket. Oh, God. Cash single.
IQ doesn't help in this sort of thing, does it?
Just stop trying to.
Or would you like a question about a polar bear and building a house instead?
Stop trying to score easy points. A cash single is, but it is currently in zones 1 to 7. It is £6.70.
Single?
Can that be right?
I don't think that's right either.
Well, that's what it says here. Seems unbelievably expensive to me. That's outrageous.
£6.70.
That cannot possibly be right.
You'd be cheaper to get a cab.
Cash sink. Folks, who's drawn up this useless chart? £6. Oh wait. £6.70. Zones 1 to 7. That's what it says here.
Yeah, but you're not going to 7, are you, Mr. Mayor? In zone 7. Are you fully on top of this, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, zone 1. Here we go. £4.50.
There we
TFL
go.
£4. Sorry, it's zone 1.
You initially thought it was £6.70.
I was trying to be helpful. Which is that if you're going from zone, depends where if you're going from zone 1 to 1, it is
which is what I did say. I spelt out you were going from your place of your home to your place of work.
You did. Well, you did.
Current place of work.
What I have just brilliantly demonstrated is the extreme skill of our TFL staff who help with these questions day in, day out, and who do an absolutely blinding job, and who we want to help get out into the station platforms and concourses to do an even more blinding job and help the passengers establish these kinds of things. Now, let me tell you.
I think we're there now, Mr. Mayor. I'm so sorry. We have to wrap up. Boris.
A cash single,
unless you want more IQ questions,
and it is only. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, Nick.
No, I don't stand as mayor, but you can.
My point was, by the way,
and I didn't bring IQ into the conversation. You chose.
No, you bring out IQ.
No. In your speech last week,
absolutely. And my point was, to which I return, is that I think it is disgraceful and
who's
sad
going to win X Factor?
People with great natural ability.
Who do you think would win X Factor?
No, I've got the foggiest idea about X Factor.
Who's going to win in the jungle?
I don't.
Do you know anybody who's taken place in the jungle?
Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. How about that? They're bound to be there.
And
Nick Clegg. Vince Cable and Widdicombe and Nick Clegg. I haven't got the faintest idea. Why should I? I mean,
this has been an award-winning, I would suggest, episode of Ask Boris. I wish you a very Merry Christmas, by the way.
Happy Christmas. Happy
New
Christmas.
Year. Thank you for coming in. And as Boris Johnson
by the way,
to go through the papers.
Let me tell you, your adult fare is being kept down. Very, very important. Pay as you go has been capped for 2 years running.
Where travel is next.
This is LBC 97.3.
When a businessman jumps into my cab screaming, "Get me to my meeting in double quick time," I'm tempted to tell him the best way. Go to Meeting by Citrix. Just download their online meeting software and you can meet your clients face-to-face right now. You can even share your screen with them. Try it and see how much time and money you'll save. Now, doesn't one great tip deserve another?
Discover the fast, easy way to online meetings from anywhere. Visit gotomeeting.co.uk for a free 30-day trial.